right, good morning. We are going to today, look at Chapter 1, Lesson 7, Comparing Decimals. Oops. And this is page 49 in your textbook. So we are going to be looking at comparing decimals in a couple of ways. One way is to use a number line. Now, if they give you a number line, that's the easiest way to do it, but they don't always give you a number line. Sometimes you have to create one. So I'm just going to use one of the pages that I got in my packet here in my page protector, and I'm going to find the one that has all the number lines on it. And I'm just going to use one of those to help me kind of guide my number line. So I'm actually going to kind of fold this paper back so that one of the number lines is right there at the top. And so I can kind of use it to make my number line on the blue line here the best that I can. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so actually I only need it to be that from there to there. Okay, so I'm going to call this 0 and this one. Well, let me see which numbers I am doing first. I'm going to do 3.6 to 3.8. So I'm going to call this 3 and this 4 because 3.6 and 3.8 are the two numbers I am comparing. And so 3.6 and 3.8 fall between 3 and 4 because they are greater than 3 but less than 4. And I'm just going to follow my little tick marks here so that it is evenly cut up as much as possible. So I have between 3 and 4, which makes this hash mark here 3.1, and this one is 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, and that becomes 4. So I alternate them just because, for space reasons, really. So now I want to place 3.6 on my number line. So I'm going to place a point here on 3.6, and I'm going to place another point on 3.8. And I need to know that as numbers move this way, they get smaller or lesser in value. And as numbers move this way, they get greater in value or become greater in value or get bigger. So that means that the number that is on the right is the greater number. So when I write my answer, I could write, I know that that's greater. If I write them in order, 3.6 is less than 3.8. So that's how I would use the number line to compare them. So I would have to create a number line, put my numbers on it, and see which number is to the left or which one is to the right to find out which one's greater and which one is least. If I cannot make a number line, my next option is to stack my numbers and line up the decimal points. I'm just going to write this here. Line up the decimal points. This is very, very important here. You always, when you're stacking numbers to compare or to order them, you want to make sure that your decimal points are in line. So if I stack them, I put 3 and 6/10 and 3 and 8/10. And I want to stack them like this. I always start on the left in the greatest place value and compare there first. So here I have a 3 and a 3. That does not give me any information for what I am doing. So I want they're equal. 3 and 3 are equal. So then I move to the next place value, which is the 10th place. And I look there and I say, okay, this one has a 6 and this one has an 8. I can tell which one is greater. So from here, this is the place value that tells me where the difference is. And so since I know that 6 is greater than 8, I'm sorry, 6 is less than 8, pardon me, 6 is less than 8, then I know that 3 6/10 is less than 3 8/10. Let's do another one. We could also compare with base 10 blocks if they gave us the pictures to shade, but those are very hard to draw, as we learned in earlier lessons, so we wouldn't typically do that. So what if I have these two numbers? What if I want to compare, the directions will tell you to compare 8 69/100 to 8 6/10. So what I would do is stack them. So I would stack them by their decimal points, making sure that their decimal points are in line. In order for me to make sure that I can compare in this place value here, I'm going to annex a 0. It's called annex a 0 because remember we learned in an earlier lesson that in a decimal I can add zeros on at the end, at the very far right, without changing the value of the number. So it's just like a placeholder. It doesn't change the value. So I start here in the ones place, and I have an 8 and an 8. That doesn't give me any information for what I am trying to determine. So I move to the next place value, 6 and 6. Again, those are equal, so it does not help me in my comparing. So I move to the next place value, 9 and 0. 9 and 0. Well, I know this is the place value that tells me 9 is greater. So that would tell me that 8 69/100 is greater than 8 6/10. Now I want to do just one more for a situation that I have seen occur many times. I might ask you to compare 3 7/10 to 3 54/100. Now some students will look at this and go, oh, well 54 is greater than 7. That is their first thought. 54 is greater than 7. But if I stack these numbers by their place value and compare, so I would annex a 0 here, and compare, you will see, if we start on the left, 3 and 3, those are equivalent, so they don't help me here. 7 and 5, here's the place value that tells me which one's greater, and 7 is greater than 5. And so for this answer, 3 7/10 is greater than 3 54/100. So you cannot look at the decimal side of these and go, oh, 54 is bigger than 7, because really that turns into a 70. That's 7/10, and that's only 5/10. So you have to be very careful and make sure that you are stacking your decimals when you are comparing numbers. That's all for today.